preparing stream. Let's give it a second. Awesome. All right. Good afternoon, guys. How you doing? This is Kevtech here with Ryan again. Today we're going to do Azure training part 2. If you didn't watch the first one, I suggest you watch the first one. I'll put it below in the description. But I'm going to give Ryan the screen. I'm going to give him screen time, and I'm actually going to have him share his screen. And give me a second. Let me know if you should be able to share your screen. Let me know if you see it, Ryan.
Hi guys. Let's have a look and see if I can share my screen with you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and hopefully, can you see my screen?
I see your screen. It's quite big actually, though. We might have to zoom out a little bit.
Yeah, I'll just zoom out a little bit. Can you see that now?
Yep, I see it.
Cool. All right, what we're going to do in this lesson, we're going to go through pretty quickly and discuss how to deploy a platform as a service database. And we're going to do this, and it's really quick and it's really easy. As an entry-level Azure person, or as a person learning Azure, it's something I think that you need to know. Do you need to be a SQL expert? No. You can learn that later on, but let's go through, and I've tried to make the slides really simple, and then we'll actually get in and do a live lab and see how it's done. And the reason I'm talking about SQL database is because I had one chap, Martin Nicholson, who reached out to me and asked me, if I could do something on SQL. So I thought, hey, absolutely no problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to discuss what is an SQL database and what is a platform database. And we're going to do that using the portal. We'll do a live lab. So let's talk about this. An SQL database is intelligent, it's scalable, it's a relational database service built for the cloud. It's optimized for performance, durability, it's automated, it's AI powered and has AI powered features, and it's always up to date. And what we mean by that, Microsoft manage your database for you. You don't. You can also migrate your SQL applications or even an SQL database on-prem into Azure, and you don't need any code changes. The service is fully managed. It's an intelligent SQL service. And like I said, there is a difference between your on-prem SQL and an Azure SQL service. So let's go through. All you need is an active subscription. If you don't have one, create one. It's free. Go ahead and do it. If you follow my lab and you follow my lead, you can create your database, and then you can clean up behind you, and you're not paying for any resources. You're only paying for the short time that you do the lab, and it might cost you less than a cup of coffee to do a couple of labs. So what is an SQL database? Let's have a look at some terms here. The traditional database has hardware from the ground up or a VM. So what you'd have to do, you'd have to buy a server, put it in a rack, put an operating system on it, connect it to the network, install SQL, and then tell the client, right, there you go. You can start using your SQL database. The problem with that, it takes time and it costs a lot of money. In some cases, it can take weeks because you need to order your server from HP or Dell, or IT guys need to build the server and test it and do all this jargon before it's ready, and it takes a lot of time. The other way to deploy a database is go to the Azure Market Share, use a pre-built image. The problem with this is it's a server, it's got SQL on it already, it's got the firewall in place, you can go and pay for it and deploy it, and it'll get you up and running. And that's great too. It won't take too long to do that, but there's some costs as well involved. But we're going to use the bottom method. We're going to use the full platform as a service database, meaning we are saying, Microsoft, we're going to use your SQL and you're going to take care of it. So basically, we're going to deploy the platform as a service, and we're going to set up the firewall, and literally it's going to be 10 minutes. And it's live, and you can hand it over to your dev guys, and you can say, there you go. So you can actually see the difference. So what we're going to do in the lab is, again, we will deploy our SQL servers. We will open up the firewall so we can access the database. and log in. Hand it over. There you go. And walk away and give it to your text. So what's happening in the background, it's going to deploy SQL. It's going to deploy the firewall at the same time, and it's going to make it client ready at the same time. So let's actually go and get this done. So before we move into the lab, I encourage you to go to the Microsoft link below and have a look at it. I mean, there's a lot to cover, but again, I want you guys to be familiar with deploying a SQL database live. So that being said, let's kick this puppy into action. As you can see, I've gone ahead and I've logged into my SQL portal.
You might have to unshare your screens. I think you're sharing just a PDF only.
Yep. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go and can you see it now?
There we go.
There we go. So as you can see, I've gone ahead and I've logged in to the portal. If you haven't logged into the portal, go ahead and log into the portal. So the first thing we want to do, guys and gals, is we want to go and create a resource group. The reason we create a resource group is so that we can keep everything nice and clean. So click create, and we're going to go ahead. I'm going to just paste the name in here because I've got this in Notepad. So I'm going to call it SQL PAS RG. I'm going to leave it in the East US. I'm going to click review and click create. As you can see, it doesn't take too long to create our resource group. And of course, once the resource group is created, we can go ahead now and deploy Azure SQL. Now, a lot of you may go and say, well, you got SQL databases yet? No. You want to go to Azure. So type in there, Azure, and see there it says Azure SQL. We're not talking about Azure databases for MySQL or Cosmos DB and stuff. We want to go to Azure SQL. So we're going to click on Azure SQL. So now we want to create our platform as a service database. So it's pretty straightforward. All we're going to do is we can either click create from here. Let's go ahead and create that resource. And of course, when you create the resource, we can do a single database. We can do a managed database. And here we get databases like for your market images, might have an SQL server, a Windows server running SQL. So we can do all of that if you wanted to. But again, we're going to use a single database. And if you click these drop-down menus, we can do elastic pooling and database servers and a whole lot more. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a single database because I want to get you guys up and running quickly. So let's go ahead and click create. We're going to create a single database. Now, obviously, it's going to look for a resource group. So we're going to go down and select that resource group. It's looking for an SQL server name. So I've got a server name that I've just pasted in there called SQL, database name. Now it's looking for a server. So you kind of go, well, where do I find the server? Click create new. This little window will pop up here. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give my server a name. So I could probably use the same name, but I'll just change that to say 2. And then, of course, this is unique across Azure. So if somebody's using this name, then you'd have to get another name. And you probably think, well, I don't know what, that name's being used. That's okay. We'll go ahead and we could paste in another name and see, okay, well, that name's not being used. So you can type it in, or you can do what I do in Notepad. Of course, it's looking for an admin name. So I'm going to just say AZ admin. I'm going to go ahead and type in my password. Make sure it meets the requirements. And we're going to leave it in East US. And I'm going to click OK. And what it's going to do now, it's gone ahead and we can see this is my database name. This is my database server. Now, don't go ahead and say next. You'll be paying a lot for it. So we want to go configure databases. And then we've got all of these databases, and these all cost money. So we want to go to basic. We've got basic, standard, and premium. And so I'm going to select the basic database. And of course, we have our DTUs. And I'll explain to you what DTUs are in another video. And of course, you can move this up and down to change the size of your database. And if you notice, as I move it across, I can see here, this is only going to cost me $7.55 a month to use this. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to click apply. And of course, I'm going to, if you want to use a local redundant storage, you can. For example, you can use local redundant storage or geo backup storage. We're not going to worry about that. I'm going to go ahead and select local redundant storage because it's cheaper. And we can go again, click next for networking. And of course, I'm going to leave this like this because I'm going to show you something else. And we can go next again for security. And of course, we can go through and we can just, it tells us what our coalition is. And when database maintenance is going to be happening, you can tag it if you wanted to. We could click review and create. And I'm going to go ahead and create that database. So what we've done now in this short couple of minutes, we've actually provisioned a live SQL platform as a service database. And that's it. That's all there is to it, really. There's nothing else to it. It is as easy as that. So now we'll let that spin away. It could take anywhere from about a minute, maybe to 2 or 3 minutes to deploy, because bear in mind what it's doing now as it's deploying, it's not only building that database, it's also doing all the firewall stuff for us, and it's getting it client ready for us. So it's doing 3 little things in the background, and hence the reason sometimes when you click at this little bell notification icon, it tells you that the deployment is in progress and you think, well, what's taking so long? Well, it's creating a lot of other resources in the background, and it's got to get all those resources ready. And once that database has been deployed, we'll go into it and explore it a little bit. And then we will try and see if I can connect to it using SQL Management Studio. Now, SQL Management Studio, you can download for free from Microsoft. It's a great graphical user interface tool that's used to manage SQL. And a lot of database guys out there would know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're new to databases, don't stress, don't freak out. It's a free tool. And like I say, with anything, practice makes perfect. And again, hopefully, once we finish this lab, you can go away and create this lab again on your own. And I'll show you how to clean up your resources so that you're not paying for it. So you can do this lab as many times as you want, as long as you have your Azure subscription. And you can do it with the free version of Azure. You don't have to have a pay-as-you-go subscription. If you've got a pay-as-you-go subscription, that's even better because it'll allow you to have a lot more security features enabled. I mean, Security Center, a lot of things will that are grayed out on the free version will all of a sudden come live, and you can use all of those resources. So we'll just have to wait for this to deploy. Like I say, it shouldn't take too long to deploy compared to your traditional way of thinking. Like I say, the old IT school way of thinking is, hey, let's go and buy a server for X amount of money. Okay, once you've got the server, we need to go and buy a Windows Server 2016 or 2019 or 2012. Throw Windows Server 2012 or whatever OS version on there. And then we would have to go and buy SQL, throw SQL on, and then we have to manually configure the firewall. So I'm going to go to resources. And there you go. You've successfully deployed a platform as a service SQL database in such a short time. And it's now live. If you wanted to, you could hand it over to your database guys and say, there's your database, good luck. Now, in order to connect to your database, you need to go to set server firewall. And this is really cool. And don't worry about my public IP. This is a virtual IP. So for those that think they're going to can try and get into my public IP, they won't be able to. Now, in order to connect to your database, you need to have you need to give your client machine access. So I can go ahead there and click add client IP, and this will go and find my public IP for my machine, and it'll pop it in there. And I can go ahead and click save. And now what the firewall is doing, it's updating those firewall rules so that we can connect. So I'm going to close that down because we don't need that notification. And if you notice, we've got TLS version 1 and 1.1 and 1.2. we always use 1.2. People kind of say to me, well, why do we have 1 and 1 and 1, 1.0? What's the purpose of those? Why do Microsoft even have them in there? Between you and me, they shouldn't be, but I think they're there because of backward compatibility and for other legacy systems as well. Of course, if you wanted Azure services to connect to your database, you could say, yeah, I want those services to connect to that database. You could click save, and that would give Azure, that would update your firewall rules so that Azure services can access that database service. So if you want to do monitoring using Resource Monitor or something like that, you can. Or you might say, look, I don't need Azure services to do that. You can turn it off as well. It's not getting rid of this IP. If I delete this IP, I won't be able to connect. So I'm going to go back now to my, I'm going to just click OK here. I'm going to go back to my SQL database. Now, if you have a look here, we've got this little link here, and this is our link to connect to our server. So what I could do, if I've done my homework right and cross fingers, because I'm doing this live, and the reason I'm doing this live is because if there is a bump, we can fix it. I don't want to create something and do stuff in the background and say, hey guys, it's working perfect. And you're going to go away and do your lab and you're going to go, hey Ryan, you suck. This freaking thing doesn't work. How the hell did you get it to work? So at least this way you can learn. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you a little trick. We're going to copy this. And I've gone ahead and I've downloaded SQL Management Studio. So you can download this for free from the Microsoft website. You just download it and go next, next, next. I'll just drag this over to the other screen. Just hold on.
I was going to say that, yeah, I don't see it on the screen.
I'm going to drag it over to the other screen because I want you to see some stuff. So hopefully it should open up on here. Hopefully it shouldn't open up on the other screen. Otherwise, I'll just drag it over and just show you. So there we go. Now, what I want to do, remember, I took this. Can you see stuff?
I see the Azure portal, but I don't see the actual.
Okay, let's just see on this screen sharing.
It's probably sharing the web browser only.
Okay.
I have to.
Can you see that now?
There we go. I see
there
it
we
now.
go. So I've opened up SQL Management Studio, and like I said, I've just downloaded and opened it up. Remember, we went here and we copied this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that out of there. I'm going to paste that in there. I'm going to go ahead and obviously my admin was not SQL, admin was AZ admin. And then it's going to type in that password, and hopefully it'll connect, or it won't. And that's telling me it hasn't connected. Now, I've come across this a few times, and you kind of go and have a look. And if you look at all of these details, you can kind of go through and say, well, yeah, I don't know what that means. So what we can do is we can close this down. And then what we can do is we can go back to our server firewall. And for some reason, sometimes what I do in order to get it working again is I delete that. And then I would go ahead and save that. And then, of course, I'll go and add the IP back there again. And we'll click OK. And then we'll just add the client IP. And then I would click save. It'll update the firewall rules. And then we'll be good to go. If you wanted to allow Azure services, you could click save as well. That shouldn't make any difference. And then we could go through and connect. Now, if we come down again to my resource group before we connect into there, and we go to our software as a solution, you can see here it's created our database, and we can see a whole lot of information. That's our server name that we created as we're building stuff. You can see there, we can go and have a look at our firewall settings from here. So hopefully we should be able to now connect to our SQL server again. Again, there's our databases as well. You can see our database is online. And if I click on there, this takes me back straight to where we were in the beginning. And of course, you can go back to your firewall settings as well. So I just wanted to show you how to get to those places. So let's go back and open up SQL admin again. Let's make sure we've got our database string, and we click copy. And this always happens when you're doing live stuff. Sometimes it works and then sometimes it doesn't. And I'll just paste that string in there. Is it the correct one? Let's just see. No, that's why I can't connect. So we say copy, pasting the wrong string in there. that would help. And we would delete that and paste that one in there. So that's the one we want. And I would say AZ admin, and hopefully we can connect. And of course, let's try again. No, I must have typed in something wrong down the line, but that's okay. We can fix this because this is a live lab. So again, if I went down into my virtual machines, I want to show you something here. You see there's no virtual machine. And the reason there's no virtual machine, because we are deploying a database with software as a solution. So you won't see virtual machines. Some people have databases running and they'll see their virtual machines. So let's go to our SQL database. Let's go back into our database again. And of course, you could restore your database. Let's have a look at our properties. We can make sure that's all good. And like I said, I had this problem yesterday, and for some reason, Azure needed to think about it before it did it. So let's go again back into our firewall settings. We can say that's all correct. Absolutely. Let's double check our resources. So it probably just needs a bit of time to think about it. Normally it's pretty quick. Again, like I say, we're not having elastic pooling, so that's absolutely fine. So everything looks great here. So I'm not too sure why it's saying for us to go and fly a kite. So let's have a look and just see what the story is. Let me just scroll down.
Think maybe it's the password, maybe?
If you think it's the password, where would we set the password?
Yeah, I don't think, man, double check probably.
Yeah. So we can double check. I don't think it's the password. See, again, while we're here, you could also connect using Visual Studio or Azure Data Studio. And that is another new tool by Azure. It's sort of like a cut down version of the SQL management tool. And of course, you could also use a query editor straight within SQL to connect. So we said, there's our problem. It should be AZ admin, and then if we say p-ss0rd, and I'll just type that secure password in. And of course, you can see if we do that, this should allow us to connect. So it could definitely well be a password issue. So again, let's just have a look. Let's log in again. Absolutely. So it could be a password issue on the database that's not allowing us to sync. I'm sure I did my password right. Let's just have a look. Let's come back into here. And let's have a look. It might also be because I was running a whole lot of other bits and pieces and it could have gone bump. So let's just quickly redo that again, because that's what I think has happened, because I've been running multiple databases. So what we can do very quickly, and again, like I say, this doesn't take long to do. That's probably a good thing that we've run into this database issue that we've had that's not allowing us to connect. So definitely there is something that I've done wrong, nothing that you guys have done wrong in terms of getting it set up. And unfortunately, like I say, coming down here, trying to troubleshoot and find the password and get stuff set up is going to be a little bit time consuming, and we don't want to waste a lot of time. So what we'll do is we'll just quickly redo this again. It won't take long. So what we can do is we can go ahead to our resource group. It's probably because I have all these other databases running. That's caused a lot of strife in the land, but that's okay. This is what happens when you do live labs. So we'll select that and we'll just quickly clean that database up. And I'll just copy that there and delete that resource, because again, if we come into the server here, let's try and reset the server password first. That might be it. So we go P. Let's have a look. Let's enter that password again. And let's save that. And that might allow us to connect. So again, that's why it probably was right. I didn't type it in correctly. Can you see the username there?
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah. So that's why we can't connect, because we've got that. So that's pretty easy. So if I copy that and I come back into my management studio, let's close this down. And we come back into SQL. It would help if I learned to type. So this is exciting. So
you need more coffee.
Yeah, I need more coffee. So what I would have to do is put that in there. And obviously that was hopefully the right database name. Let's type in that password because we did a reset. And let's say connect. And that's thinking about it. So let's just give it a while it connects. And that's the wrong database, do you think? Look at the database string. Let's have a look and see.
Double check.
Let's double check. And the reason, like I say, I like doing these labs live sometimes is because we have little mistakes like this that can happen. So let's go back and quickly, and we'll close that down. Let's go back into our databases. And again, we select our database, and that's why we couldn't connect. You see, that's, sorry, the wrong database, and we can get our bits and pieces. So we now have to go and get the correct string. Can you see that? That was the string, so we were right. We come back down here, guys. Come on. And let's have a look and see what that string is showing us. Can you see the string there? It says database 02. That's not the right database. That's the database you want to connect to. And of course, that was AD admin. I think it was something like that. Was it? I'll have to have a look.
Double check again, just in case.
Double check. Well, normally as a good engineer, what you do, you would copy and paste the stuff into Notepad, and we'll go through and have a look. And there
we go.
And now it's connected our database. And we're using our SQL Management Studio to connect to our database. And there's that database we created in Azure. And now you can hand this over to your database guys. And they can go ahead and they can create their tables, they can create their views, they can import their backups from a database backup and throw it straight into Azure, and they're off to the races. So one of the common issues that we have is exactly what's just happened to us. Sometimes the username is incorrect. Sometimes the database string is incorrect. Sometimes the password's incorrect. And people say, oh, you know, you should take a note of that. Yes, in the real world, you'll paste that down. But sometimes, how many of you out there have built Windows virtual machines and you got, damn, what was the password again? And you kind of forget what the password is, so you can't even log onto your virtual machine or even log onto your Windows desktop. So these are common things that you would face when building out your platforms. So again, in a way, I'm glad this happened because I want you to see how to troubleshoot various problems. So you can say, okay, well, I can't connect. Why couldn't I connect? Check the username. Okay, the username is correct. Okay, check the password. Okay, the password is correct. Okay, check the database string. The database string is wrong. Let's paste that in, and there we can connect. So again, it's a good lab to get you up and running pretty quickly on getting deploying an SQL database. And how long has this taken, including the errors that we've had? Maybe 10, 15 minutes, and you're live. Where if you had to pre-build stuff or go stuff to the marketplace, you could probably have it up and running in the same amount of time, probably about 20 minutes. If you have to go and buy the hardware from a vendor and then get everything all set up and all the licenses, you're looking at days or weeks before it even goes live. So now, hopefully in this lab, you would have learned how to deploy an SQL platform as a service database in a very, very short time. So to clean up our lab behind us so that we're not being charged for things, I'll show you how to do that. But again, with our databases, you can go ahead and use Power BI, which gives you a nice graphical tool to chart out your database resources. Again, you can go through down here and you can start doing a whole lot of auditing on your databases. You can do performance overview. And if you ever look in the Microsoft menu here, like we've got this thing that says task and it says in brackets preview. That means it's a new tool that Microsoft are bringing into Azure. So you'll find a lot of tools that will say preview. And that's great because Microsoft's always changing the way Azure looks and feels. So again, just be aware of that. Again, you can do all of your performance insights and automatic tuning from here. So that's how you deploy a database. It's pretty easy. So in order to clean up our resources so that we're not paying $7 a month for our database, we've done the lab. We can go to resource group. We can highlight the resource group and we can go along, select SQL PAS RG for our resource group. We can say copy. We can go ahead and say delete. Now it's going to delete our server that it's created and our database. So you can see again, this is the SQL server and this is the database. Those are the two resources that Microsoft created for us automatically. We didn't go and build an SQL server. So I can go ahead and say delete, and this will go ahead and delete that lab for us. In other words, you're not paying for it. It's going to make our Azure subscription nice and clean again. And we can go ahead and redo that lab again and again until we get it underneath our belt. I always say to people that are learning Azure is try and do the labs 2 or 3 times, because then it'll sink in. Because if you just do it once, it'll work and you say, okay, I've got it. I don't need to do it again. Do it a couple of times. I mean, so that you're comfortable with it. So if your boss says to you, or your manager says to you, or your exec says to you, hey, Kevin, I need you to go and deploy a platform as a solution database, and the database guys need it now. How long is it going to take? You can say, well, because we're in Azure, I've got some good news for you. That database will be live in less than 25 minutes. Always give yourself a bit of extra time. Don't say it's going to be live in 10 minutes, because you'll probably be there in 10 minutes time and say, well, you said 10 minutes, it's now 10 minutes. Why is the database up? So you can say, yeah, just give me 20 minutes and it'll be up and running and deployed. And you can then hand it over to your Azure guys. Again, another thing I want to talk to you about quickly while that's deploying is, let's say you've created this database, Maria database over here, and you want to protect it. It doesn't have to mean databases. It can be anything else. It can be virtual machines. It can be a resource group. It can be whatever it is that you want to do. So in our case, I want to protect this resource group because it's got my database. I'm going to go ahead and click locks. I'm going to go ahead and add a lock, and I can call this, say, DB lock. And we can go ahead and say, right, I'm going to make that a delete lock. So I'm going to say cannot delete. So I'm going to go ahead then and say cannot delete, and I'll apply that lock there. And of course, you can always edit that lock by coming into here. Now, what we're saying is you can't delete that. So if I had to come back down into my MariaDB, let's close this down, come back into that resource group, and I go there and I kind of copy on that, and we say, right, we finished our resources. Let's go and delete that. There's the message. Cannot delete that. It failed. Can you see that? Because we've put
pretty cool.
We've put a lock on it, and you can apply this to all Azure resources. So you can't accidentally say, oh, I deleted that by mistake. But now you might say, well, I want to give someone read access only so that they can read it, but not delete it. So again, it's quite easy. You can just come back down into locks. There's our lock. We could add another lock. We could type, I don't know, let's type in DB, a name that you familiar with. And you can say, right, this is going to be a read only. And then you can say read only. If I can spell today. And you can say read only, and we could apply that lock as well. So now we've got 2 locks applied there. So again, I can close that down. I can come back up here to this resource. I can highlight it and say, well, I've got a read only lock there. Let's go copy. Let's go and try to delete that and say, okay. And you still get a resource that you can't delete it. You can read it, but you won't be able to delete it. So again, we can go into locks, and you can say, well, we've created that read lock only. So let's delete that lock. So we've got the read lock only, and let's see if it is going to work. So you might say, oh, well, that's because we had the delete lock there. That's why it's not deleting. So we come back into here again. We can select MariaDB, and we can go ahead and say, well, let's delete that resource group anyway, because we don't need it. You still can't delete it. You can read the resource, but we won't be able to add anything to that resource because it's read only. So you might think, well, I want to go and add a policy, or I want to go and add something. You can't do that because it's read only. You don't have permission. In order to clear that lock, again, we can come back up here. And of course, we can go ahead and delete that lock. You can also apply locks to subscriptions as well. So we can go ahead and delete it. So that's how you apply a resource lock. Really easy to do to protect your resources, because some people like to use the fancy names. Oh, we need to go and create a policy. And once you've had that policy in place, we need to put a delete lock to prevent accidental deletion. Or, hey, we need to go and apply a read lock to a resource. And you're probably sitting there as a newbie saying, how the heck do I apply a read lock to a resource? And what the hell? And you'll walk away and you start sweating because you think, oh, I've never done this before. So again, pretty easy to apply a lock. Again, you could go into a resource, for example, and you could apply, again, if I click on that, I could go into here and start locking stuff down as well if I wanted to individually. But again, most of the time, I would say if you want to protect your stuff, try and apply that resource lock at a resource group level, like right at the top here. Then you know that you're protecting everything in that little container. Think of your resource groups as files. You're protecting everything in that file. You don't want to go in there and just protect an individual file. You want to go in and protect a lot of stuff that you can from accidental deletion. So hopefully you guys have learned some cool things in this short little lab on how to deploy, like I say, a PaaS SQL solution database. And you can do the same with MySQL, Cosmos DB, MariaDB, and of course, Microsoft SQL database. So there's a lot of cool things that you can do. I would say go away, practice, play, have fun. You know, again, we all make mistakes. So if you make a mistake, don't sweat. Delete the resource, start again. If you've got a bit of time, troubleshoot it and get your troubleshooting skills up to speed. Again, protecting those resources, those critical resources, just go to the resource lock, click, apply that lock, and you're freaking home and dry. And you can also do that via policy. You can go to Active Directory and again, assign users permissions and groups and stuff. But again, I wanted to do this little lab today, so at least you guys can deploy a Windows virtual machine, you can deploy a resource group, you can apply some security around that resource, and of course, most importantly, you know how to deploy a platform as a solution SQL database. So some really fundamental stuff, but again, to get you up and running and give you the confidence to realize, well, hey, it's not so hard to do when it comes to dealing with Azure and it comes to dealing with these resources. And that concludes the lab. I hope you guys have had fun and I hope you've learned something.
Man, that was awesome, Ryan. Thank you for showing everyone that. People said it's a great tutorial, a lot of information. I liked it. Some people said SQL, wow, awesome. Yeah. You definitely need to know how to do that if you're a sysadmin, like at least how to deploy it when you're doing sysadmin level stuff. So I definitely appreciate you taking the time to show I guess I was gonna say my audience. I'm not gonna say that. Show people and people that are watching now live that the time to actually show how to do things on Azure, because people are scared that are new to IT. People are scared to touch Azure when I tell them, don't be scared of it. Just embrace it and learn it. And you're teaching it in such a manner that actually everyone understands it. So thank you, Ryan, for sharing your screen, for doing that PowerPoint presentation, and for making it easy for everyone to understand.
No, thank you, Kevin. And then also what I want to do quickly, just one other little thing I want to show you, which it's just come to mind now. You say people are scared to use Azure, and I think a lot of them are scared because of cost. If I use Azure, I'm going to be paying for it. So guys, under your platform, go to cost management. If you don't see cost management, I'm going to show you a little trick as well. So you can go to cost management and billing. And again, under your cost management over here, we can, once you click on your cost management, go down to budgets, select budget. And I'm going to show you how to create yourself a budget so that you don't get billed by Azure for accidentally spending money that you don't want to spend. So you can click on budgets and you can go and click add, and you can call give yourself a budget name. Let's call this, I don't know, I'll just call this training. And we can say, right, we want this budget just to be for this year only. And I'm just going to change it to June. And then what you want to do is we want to say, we want to give our budget $10 a month. Hey guys, I'm allocating myself $10 a month for my IT budget so that I don't get scared when I'm using Azure and Azure's just going to bill me and I'm going to be in hot water. I want to know when I've reached $10, I can say, oh, okay, hang on, I need to stop and maybe wait and move forward. So you can give yourself a budget of $10, $20, whatever it is, go next. So then what you need to do is we need to give yourself an email address. So I'll put my email address there, and we go and add a scope and say actual budget. So I'm going to say, right, when I reach 50% of my budget, email me. When I reach, say 75% of my actual budget, email me. And then, of course, I can go down and, of course, as you go through, and when I reach 100% of my budget, email me. And then, of course, you can go ahead and you can say, I've got an email address there, and you can say create, and this will go away and it'll create that budget. Now, when you reach 50% of your budget, you'll get an email saying, hey, Kev, hey, guys, you've reached 50% of your budget. As you move on, hey, you've reached 75% of your budget. Hey, you've now hit the $10 mark. What do you want to do? And that way, this will turn green over time. And that way, when you hit $5, it'll tell you you've hit $5. When you've got to 74%, it'll tell you you've hit $7. And when you've got to 100%, it'll say, hey, you've now spent $10. Now, the thing is, once you've created your budget, you can edit your budget by coming down here and changing the amount only. And if you wanted to, you could delete, if you wanted to try and change these settings that are grayed out, you're gonna have to delete your budget and recreate it again. So that's how you create a budget so that you guys don't overspend. So don't be scared with Azure. Go in, create yourself a budget, and you're freaking cooking with gas. You're ready to go, mate. You won't have any issues working within Azure because you are within your budget. I mean, this is telling me what I've spent in the past 5 months of using Azure. I spent 55 New Zealand dollars in the past 5 months doing all my labs and training a whole lot of people. Break that down to US dollars, $30, $35 for 5 months. It's nothing, guys. It's a small price to pay to learn Azure. Put a budget in place and you'll protect yourself. You won't overspend. You'll always be within your threshold. If you're in a live environment, do that in your live environment, and your management and your finance and your bosses and the execs will just love you because you are keeping tabs on everything. And of course, you can go ahead with other labs and you could actually pipe all this out into a PDF graph and give it to your boss and say, there's our training budget, or that's the budget for finance. So you can create multiple budgets. You can say budget, finance budget, IT budget, help desk budget, so that nobody's blowing resources left, right, and center, and your costs are not going through the roof. So that's how you create a budget. So again, sorry, I know it's on top of the other lab, but I thought if you know this, you're not going to be scared to use Azure. And again, I want to thank everyone for taking the time to watch the videos. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to tune in. So I do really appreciate you giving me your time. And for me, it's a privilege to take the time to spend with you and show you the little bit that I know. So thank you again, everyone.
All right, Ryan, thank you for sharing that with us. That's awesome. I'm going to I'm going to let everyone go. Maybe next week we'll go over AD Connect, probably do something
Yes.
on AD Connect, just to show people how it's done with a hybrid environment, with setting up an on-prem server, and how companies are using on-prem with AD Connect. We'll probably go over that next week. With that being said, I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you, Ryan, for sharing your screen. Thank you, Ryan, for sharing your knowledge and wealth of knowledge. Greatly appreciate it. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and stay safe. And I'll let Ryan, I don't know if Ryan wants to say anything.
I just want to say thank you guys for your time. Thank you, Kevin. I always look forward to our little catch-ups. I mean, it's good that I can share a little bit of knowledge. And as with the rest of you guys out there, you Azure gurus, be awesome. And we'll see you in the next lab, or we'll see you next week. And be safe.
Be safe, guys. You guys take care and have a wonderful day. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. And